The Clean Power Hour is brought to you by Continental Energy Solutions. I'm your co-host, Tim Montague. Welcome to the show. Today, solid state storage, hot or hype. New England rooftop solar saving customers upwards of $4 billion. It's true. New solar cell efficiency record. They just keep ticking by. And repowering solar arrays is a booming business. We have a special guest today. But first, our man in Massachusetts. Welcome to the show, John Weaver.
Hey, Timothy, how do you do? And I wanna actually criticize you real quick. Your introduction said New England solar customers saving $4 billion, and that's not what the headline says. It says their neighbors are saving $4 billion. So
when we install solar, we're actually saving the non-solar customers as well.
Those leeches are stealing from us. Timothy, they're stealing from us, and we need to start charging our neighbors for using our solar.
Well, I like to tout the many benefits of solar in addition to saving lives by cleaning the air, creating clean jobs, and
there's more than that.
Yep, it's more than that. It is a multi-layered cake, a delicious cake it is. Well, I'm thrilled to have a special guest on the show today. He is the owner and principal of Nulife Power Systems. Welcome to the show, Cesar Barbosa.
Thanks for having me, Tim. John, hello.
Hello.
We have, John was kind enough to point out your work, I don't know, a couple months ago. And so then I saw you had posted a video and I watched that and I thought, oh yeah, we should get Cesar on the show to talk about your work. You know, as the solar industry matures, that means that we have this growing cadre of solar panels that will eventually be decommissioned, removed from their beautiful rooftops, and something else will happen to them. But we hope that that doesn't mean that they're going to go in the landfill, because that would be an ecological disaster. Tell us a little bit about Nulife and what got you into the recycling business.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. So I like to open up with the story, and the way it happened was about 2 years ago. I've been in the industry for 12 years, and I've traveled the country, and I've visited many legacy systems. It kind of became a niche of mine. And about 2 years ago, we had a customer who approached us and said, "Hey, we have this rooftop commercial system that needs to be decommissioned." And the term decommission basically means to remove the system in its entirety and then recover the facility or the land, right? So it generally means take the system away. So the customer approaches us and says, "Hey, we have this decommissioning need. Here's the budget for the recycling of the modules. Don't exceed that budget. The rest of it you can bid as is." And so we said, "Hold on, okay, well, thanks for the opportunity, but let's clear that up. What do you mean by recycling the modules? Because generally that means destroying the modules, right? Recovering their material, dismantling, but nonetheless destroying the module. That's what the correct term of recycling means." And so the customer says, "Yeah, that's generally what we understand needs to happen." And so we said, "Okay, well, what's wrong with these modules?" Well, nothing. Not only nothing, but they were a perfectly intact tier 1 module, 300 watt plus. And so we said, you know what, doesn't really align with the shift of long-term renewable energy. There has to be something that we can do with these 2,000 plus modules. So we make a few phone calls, we reach out to our network, and sure enough, we find an off-grid user in the state of Mexico who's really interested in to collect these secondhand repurposed modules for a heck of a price. So we go back to the customer and we say, "Hey, here's the, let's generally just say that it was a $20,000 for the system." We say, "Here's your $20,000, and an additional $20,000 because we found somebody in a third world country that is in dire need of these modules." So, I mean, come on, you know, when somebody comes back to you and gives you $20,000 back and an additional $20,000 back, what do? You give them another 12 sites to decommission. And so that was kind of the launching pad, and the great opportunity that we saw.
Hey, Cesar, when people give me an extra $20,000, I usually I tend to be their friend. Just saying, in general, that's a thing that occurs.
Yeah. No, fair enough, man. Listen, transparency, right? I mean, there was no need to get rich off one project. And so, come on, you can't hide $20,000. And this was a long-term fight. I'm sure you guys would have done the same. And again, I mean, we got paid back in dividends. 12 sites were added, and that was in 2018 when we went full throttle, and the word got out. And I tell you guys, the lessons that we learned, and with lessons come money, right? Money wasted. But essentially, we did the research, we found the right partners, and I think to date, we're at a little over 20 systems, commercial systems decommissioned and counting. So we've tailored our focus to PV end of life as it relates specifically to decommissioning.
So if you're a system owner,
So,
let's say you're a big box system owner, and let's walk that system owner through their options and the chain, so to speak, from if they decide to repower, what happens to those modules? Where do they go? But what are their choices? If I have an array that's, say, 15 years old, I know that there's much better technology on the street, more affordable technology. It is starting to look compelling, but what are the options?
Yeah, good question, Tim. Generally, it's only three. You generally only have three options, right? One is, and this term I use loosely because there's different terminology for this, but I'll call it refurbishing, which really means repairing the system or keeping it as best maintained as possible. So it's limited investment, but it's enough to keep the system going for, let's say, perhaps another 5 years, if you were to quantify it and how much of a extended lifetime that you would get. The second option is to repower. The repower basically means that you're changing a larger scale of the system components, let's say the modules perhaps, right? Or the inverters, you're repowering the inverters. You have an old central legacy inverters, which potentially probably the manufacturer's gone out of business, or the parts have become incredibly expensive that it just doesn't make sense to keep throwing money into it. And so you'll repower the inverter. And then the third is decommissioning, which basically means to remove the system, and then perhaps have the opportunity to install a brand new system in its place. So generally, it's only three options. And I will say, Tim, that before those options arise, of course, the financial analysis have to be done, right? The levelized cost of energy, all of that needs to be predetermined before you go and you collect a contractor like myself. Generally, when a contractor approaches us, they've kind of done the value engineering in some regard, and if not, we have third-party engineers that generally can help with that. But by the time we get the call, they're about 6 months away from having to make a serious decision. But generally, those three options.
And so if they are going to repower and take off, say a few thousand modules, what happens to those modules?
Yeah. So in terms of handling a legacy module, I would, interestingly enough, say that again, you have three options. One is to refurbish, which there are a lot of companies now, recycling companies that specialize in that, which basically they take the module offsite, and if it's minimal repair, let's say backsheet, or the MC, the leads, or the MC connector, something that isn't too invasive, they can generally refurbish it. Now, I will say that there are some very stringent requirements and responsibilities that not just the customer, the big box retail or asset manager need to consider, but the recycling company themselves also. If you can imagine, if I'm giving you a module that is towards the end of its life, you're taking it away and then wanting to refurbish it, that module that isn't at its prime anymore. So what do you do with that? You're going to send it to a third world country. So there can be pros and cons with that, right? So I'll leave it at that. Refurbishing is a an option that needs to be very well responsibly managed by the asset owner, and again, the recycling company who should be accredited to do something like that. The second is to repurpose, right? So, refurbish, repurpose. Let's not get those confused. Repurposing the module is basically taking a module where essentially, somebody like us, before we decommission it, will do a very basic performance inspection of the module, right? Whether it's a VOC or an IMP reading, just to make sure that there's nothing wrong with the module. We'll do our data research to make sure there's no class claim defects or anything. And then generally, if we see that the module is in good condition, there's no issues, power factors are still within line, then we can take that module as is and then repurpose them in the secondhand world market. And that's generally where we've had the biggest bang for our buck, where we can take these 2,000 to 3,000 panels off a job site, and then we've sent them to villages in rural villages in Kenya. We've sent them to Dominican Republic after a big hailstorm. We've even sent them up to some of off-grid customers in California right after the big fires that we had here. And I'll tell you, man, they graciously accept these modules. And then the third is recycle them, which again is basically to destroy them, where they have to go again to an accredited facility, and then they'll go through their processes of separating those materials, and then hopefully using that material into a recircular economy, hopefully making panels again for the future, you would hope. So again, 3 options.
There's an image that Tim was sharing a few moments ago from your LinkedIn profile of one of your more recent pictures. And I wanted to point out that specific. Can you see that screen there, Cesar?
Sure.
Yeah, so those modules right there, that cleanly packed few pallets, are those new modules or old modules?
Yeah, no, those are new. You might even be able to, yeah.
Because I've seen prior of your stackings of old modules, and sometimes coming off the roof, the equipment looks clean, sharp, well put together. It's tough to tell that it's broken hardware, or not broken, but used 10-plus-year-old hardware that's coming off a roof, because some of the packing is so nice. So, well, this case I was wrong. So never mind, listeners, watchers. Just go to his the LinkedIn account, though. You will see some of the work getting done. I just like watching. Roughly how much, let's just say I had a customer who wanted to take advantage of this market and buy some old panels. What's it cost? I know how much it would cost to ship a few pallets, say from California to New England, but how much would I pay for some panels if I wanted to buy those from you? Just I don't know, whatever the last batch you did.
Yeah, there will always be a delta based on the quality or the wattage and manufacture of the module, right? A BP 175 isn't going to give you the same return as a SunPower 305, and we've decommissioned both. So keep that in mind. I think what I would say to help a customer quantify that option is that, and I share this number because we've been pretty transparent of this particular number. We offer the system owner anywhere from 4 to 5 cents a watt on the module, regardless of what kind of module it is, right? 4 to 5 cents for a legacy module. What we do, again, because we're generally doing about a system or 2 at a time, we have 2,000 to 4,000 modules coming off of roofs or carports or ground mounts every month. So we typically partner up with large scale brokers or recycling companies, right? We can't hold them for too long, and right, I mean, they add up quickly. So what I would say is that if we're offering 4 to 5 cents a watt, you include another 3 cents a watt for the transportation to get them off site, and then the markup basically falls in the hands of the second or third guy. So I've seen modules, I'll give you an example. I've seen modules where I've given the system owner a credit of, let's say, $10 a pop, $10 a module. I've seen that same module a month later on eBay for $40. So it's a huge delta, but hey, that's the world of brokers, right? That's the world of secondhand.
But if I slipped you my email address and there were a new portfolio that came, I might see a 5-cent deal if I were to take care of all the panels. So I get it.
Hey, John, as much as I already get bunches of emails, I tell you what, man, that is the trick. The trick is to get to the first guy, right? To get to the guy who's taking the system off the roof. That's the deal. So yeah, man, shoot me an email.
Cool data. Thanks.
Yeah, it seems to me like you're sitting on a gold mine. And I mean, as the solar industry is going to go vertical here, so is the recycling or repowering. I use recycling loosely. Really what I want to see the industry move towards is zero waste manufacturing, where the product is made to be repurposed indefinitely to the extent possible. You know, solar modules are very difficult to recycle, right? They pretty much have to grind them up and melt them into their various parts. And yeah, there's glass and silicon and there's precious metals, but it's super energy intensive and potentially toxic and messy. And who knows who's doing that work in what working conditions. That's, that is a major concern with e-waste in general.
Oh yeah, Tim, you nailed it, man. I mean, again, just look at the numbers. 50, well, I say 55 cents a pound to recycle a module. That includes transportation. Generally, these recycling companies, and again, this data is online everywhere, right? It generally is about 25 to 35 cents a pound is what the recycling centers would cost you. So you're right, the energy involved is substantial enough to where it's not cheap. And I agree with you. And you know what, Tim, the legislation and the policy and the technology is advancing. I'll say that, just even several years ago, European countries, I know you've done your research. We're talking a little bit about that offline. I would say that there were 3-4 steps ahead of us. I think we're catching up to that. And the idea is that, in the next decade or two, we'll have better efficiencies in manufacturing panels. Well, we will be able to collect, like you said, most of the recoverable materials, if not all of them. I hope that's the reality as well.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Cesar. We're going to move on and let you go. That's Cesar Barbosa with Nulife Power Services. Thanks so much.
My pleasure, gentlemen. Thank you for your time. Thanks for having me.
I just want to let you know, I just shared his pricing information, Cesar's pricing information on Twitter, because I think it's such a neat little piece of data to have. There's a lot of people who are more than happy buying old hardware and using it for another 15 years. And I don't know exactly what occurs after the 25th year in terms of degradation, but I did hear one guy who may or may not know what he's talking about, but he said panels tend to flatten out once you hit that 80 or 25, 30 year time, and they may just roughly go at whatever that number is. And if that's the case, then, if you buy a 20-year-old panel, it's like buying a brand new panel, just, not as efficient, and it never degrades. If that's the case, cool. I'm really interested in the market, especially from, the environmentalism of not dumping it, of course. So,
yep. Well, and the reality is that most panels are going to be at 80%, between 70 and 80%. And that's still a lot of juice. And so they will produce for another 20 years. It's just a question of at what level. But given how relatively expensive solar is, you can imagine there are plenty of places that want to take pre-owned panels and put them on their facility. All right. Well,
I mean,
go ahead.
I was about to say, if I was going to do off-grid houses, I'd get some discount panels, small off-grid things, small used old panels. That'd be a great market for it.
Yeah, like I said, I think Caesar's sitting on a rocket ship. So, but we all are. So you got a story here, John, on your blog at commercialsolarguy.com. Business and homeowners installing solar are saving their neighbors billions.
Yeah. So a group did an analysis, and they've been doing them for the last few years. It's always nice to see what they do. But their analysis looked at how solar affected not only the homeowner, but the grid in general. And these first charts, that's the wholesale power market. So the first chunk of savings is somewhere in the lines of 1.7-ish billion, if I remember right, but it's over a billion, maybe 1.1 billion. And half of it's on lowering the overall volume of electricity needed, and the majority of it is just knocking some costs off the wholesale price, the spot market price. And so this is that first round of savings. And this one's a very clear savings. But everybody who buys electricity is getting cheaper electricity because solar generates at the expensive time of the day. You know, in California, they have a duck curve issue where solar collapses the price of electricity in the daytime. That's because California is among the world's leaders in deploying solar power. In the rest of the world, the most expensive electricity is daytime noon electricity, because noon to 2 p.m. is when we turn on the AC the most in the summer, and that drives our bills. Well, in New England, we're still in that reality. And so solar is being generated at the most expensive period, and it's cleaning off hundreds of millions of dollars from wholesale pricing. And you can see on a per year basis how much the general market is saving just on this one benefit. And this is only behind the meter. So this is rooftop solar. This is solar that's in a carport or a ground mount that's at a company's site. So customer sited solar is saving their neighbors billions of dollars. I want to point that out because a lot of people say, rich people get solar, rich people get incentives, but no, it's the neighbors that are getting it. So
on this chart that you've got here with the orange line and the black line, it's the delta between the orange and the black, or the orange and the gray, that is the savings to the total grid customers. Is that the deal?
Yeah, for this chart, it's the orange and the black. The gray was if they doubled it and they were doing some other calculations. So the orange is what the grid would have been, and the black is what it was. And so what they did is they said, okay, based on our data, what would the orange have cost? Now, this is electricity that the grid never asked for because it was being absorbed by solar generation behind the grid. So that orange never appeared. The power grid was never stressed. The big machines were never turned up. And that was the most expensive. And you see when it's produced, it's right at the peak. It's shortened the peak. And it's the most expensive electricity. And that was a heat wave that they showed right there. And that week alone, there was like $30 million of savings because solar just shaved the extreme peak off. And so that's just one of the ways, was that wholesale. In that document, there's like 3 or 4 different ways that distributed solar saves neighbors money. And, you get into it and this is a broad societal investment. Before we even consider the fact that we're doing climate change, doing local jobs, saving our breath, there's much benefit that comes from distributing solar. So.
Yep. Agreed. And, well, we've got a story also about EVs and how their carbon footprint is so much lower than other vehicles on the road. This is on your Twitter feed, I believe.
Wow.
But
Colin isn't my account. I'm no expert here, but really, what this chart is showing is, there's a lot of talk regularly that an EV is more expensive from a CO2 perspective to build. And it's true. There's more inside of the car at the time it's delivered. Those batteries are big. There's a lot of materials. But if you look at the like the BEV there, that battery electric vehicle, and you look at its numbers for the tons of CO2, it's going to take on a clean power grid, it takes a year to cover that battery. And as power grids get cleaner, like in, say, New England and New York, where I live, that number is going to go down even lower. And so I think it's important that we counter the misinformation, because there are literally people paid to lie. I mean, this is just reality. This is how the world works. And so people are paid to lie about battery efficiency, environmentalism, even Aston Martin. I don't know, Tim, did you hear the news about the UK press release that came out from some dude closely associated with Aston Martin about batteries and stuff?
No, didn't hear that one.
Okay, so some study from a think tank came out and said it takes 100,000 miles for an EV to pay back its battery. And some smart fellow, first off, said these numbers are bunk. And then they started poking around and they discovered that the address of the company was the same address as some executive at Aston Martin. And so some dude at Aston Martin making gas engines said, we're going to put out a fake story and talk some smack toward EVs. And it took this dude named Auk. He's really this expert of EVs in Europe. And he just poked it apart. And Aston Martin ends up releasing a document saying, we're really sorry about that. We don't want to lie to anybody. We apologize for this EV misinformation getting put out there. So, people are going to fight tooth and nail to keep their oil lifestyles flowing. It's what money and power are.
Indeed. Yep. A lot of questionable information about ICE engines versus EVs. And I'm glad you point out that EVs aren't perfect. They have a carbon footprint. There's embodied energy in making the aluminum body, the steel, the batteries. And, but the question is the EV versus the ICE engine. And, I was just thinking today, coming home from the grocery store, I don't go to the gas station anymore. I fuel up my vehicle with electrons in my garage. And yes, the grid isn't clean yet, but that is going to happen here in the next 20 years. And truly, I'm planning to put together a kit so I can charge my EV with a solar kit that I carry in the back. And it is the future. If we are going to decarbonize the economy, electrifying transportation is the path forward. It's just a question of how quickly and can we save our butts. So, well, you found a very cool picture.
Yep.
About a very cool place. And I'm going to get this on screen. This is the Keck observatory on Maunakea in Hawaii. And I've heard about the Keck over the years. I'm not up on the latest and greatest. I was just looking at their website. I mean, they're doing hardcore astronomy there, but do you want to talk about this?
I mean, first off, Tim, I'd like to petition the budget of the Clean Power Hour for a field study.
Definitely.
If we could arrange that, that'd be great. Yeah.
Right
I just
about now.
Yeah.
December would be an awesome time to go to Mauna Kea. Although it's quite cold up there.
Well, that's actually so the system, first off, I just thought it was a cool picture. Space telescopes and solar, sweet. The design of it was rounded at those edges because snow will build up on the telescope units there and slough off. And so they customized how they laid out the module so that snow wouldn't do it. The structure of the building, it's a very, very light structure, however it's made, and they noted some key wording in the article, but that had to be a ballasted racking system that put on a very, very light weight. And so they had to be a little creative with their connection system. And of course, they talked about it being at a very high altitude. I'm sure the very thin air is going to help with great solar insulation. But they also said thin air has an effect that has to be considered on how panels operate. So I'll be honest with you, I just thought it was a cool picture. It was shiny looking.
Well, and it's the world's largest commercial PV system at the highest altitude.
Okay. Yeah.
133 kW, which is nothing to sneeze at. That's a decent sized system. And what a beautiful facility to receive clean renewable energy. I don't know. It doesn't say what % of their power they're offsetting, but yeah, I agree. Cool story.
I mean, one, installing it must be a challenge, just getting there and getting back, up and down the hill, up and down the mountain, pardon me. But what must it be like? Sometimes just sitting on a roof is beautiful. And then, you turn to the left or right and you're like, oh my gosh, look at the views up here. But what must it be like being on a roof on a mountain and then turning around and seeing, oh my gosh, this is beautiful up here. So it must be kind of a cool installation there.
Well, you did it again, John. You found another story about tandem solar cells, and
you better get used to it.
I guess so. I guess so, man. It's like becoming a thing. Perovskite silicon tandem solar cells.
And we got a new record on the NREL chart. So the NREL chart is the end all be all. Them and Fraunhofer, I guess, would be the two groups who do official testing. And but the this perovskite silicon tandem cell is at 29% efficiency. I mean, that's like a 26% panel. Maybe it's a 25% panel when you put all that together. I mean, if you can get that chip. Now, this is a research cell, so this is not a thing in the lab, or this is a thing in the lab. And so it's very, very far. But this is, we're going to have 30% efficient solar panels. And we may not have it until 2030, but we're going to have 30% efficient solar panels. And maybe we'll have more. This tandem thing is really interesting. It's not going away. Smart people are doing it. I'm going to be writing another article which focuses specifically on the bottom portion of the tandem, saying, okay, if we have a perovskite top, what's the best type of solar cell underneath? And they look at common solar cells today, because that's what the pitch is, that we're just going to take this perovskite and to some degree, we're going to layer it on top of standard solar cells. And, this is a big record. This Oxford PV should be delivering their tandem perovskite solar cells sometime in probably next month. Like, somebody's going to get their solar cells in January for a panel. And by the summer, I think there's probably going to be an announcement that some company is selling Oxford PV solar cells. I think it might be REC Group of Singapore who's going to be selling those panels. So it's close. That's really, really close. And these records, Oxford PV is going to be among the leaders of the efficiency for a little while. So they're going to come up with a new percentage soon. I bet you now in their office, they're like, dang it, we're no longer number one. It's time to send a new chip.
The records will fall. Well, hey, we only have time for one more story. I have a hard stop. Would you like to talk about the Berkeley report or grid
Well,
scales?
you got to talk about the solid state because you talked about it in the headline. Come on. Can't Can't tease our people. They're here to listen about the solid state batteries.
Quantumscape's big reveal. And I'm curious what your take on this is. Do you want to lead off?
There are multiple parties seeing a strong possibility in solid state batteries, whether it's Quantumscape, Toyota, or whomever doing it. It just seems like it's coming. And this company got a lot of attention, but they're still far from delivering. They're just, they're worth like $26 billion in this new thing called a SPAC, which is where they reverse merger themselves into being a publicly traded company so they can raise capital. But somebody's going to do this with the solid state battery. And I assume, maybe one of these groups gets bought by Tesla. Maybe Tesla comes up with their own solid state, but solid state's coming. It seems really interesting. And if these guys are doing it, I mean, you look at the stats, 400 kW watts per kilogram density. That's where Tesla's going. And that's where other people say you do start having some other cool effects because of size, 250,000 miles, recharge in 15 minutes. These are stats where you forget what kind of car you have. You just know you got a cool car and you don't care that it's electric. It's just a car. One day it won't be an EV. It's going to be a car. You have a box with wheels. You're going to stop caring that it's a Tesla and that it doesn't put out, gunk. You'll go see that at classic car shows and be like, wow, what a loud thing these people used to drive in. And, so I like this concept. I'm not smart enough to say if they're the experts. The experts say that they're smart and they're doing it well. They haven't made any money. They haven't sold any batteries. So they're press release still.
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting. I watched the video that they made, and JB Straubel is on their board. He's a former Tesla guy, right? Who's now started Redwood Energy, a battery recycling company. So he gives them tremendous credibility. So they have attracted a group of rock stars. Their pipeline is a little far out. And after watching several others digest the news, I'm more bearish than I was initially. Just in terms of their stats, they don't seem to be really knocking it out of the park. They're going head to head potentially with lithium ion batteries. They're going to be potentially where Tesla is, but this is not a Tesla killer. Not that Tesla couldn't start putting solid state batteries in their cars. Of course, it's conceivable, although they seem to be doubling down on lithium ion batteries right now, certainly getting into the battery manufacturing game themselves directly. And, I like it that it's potentially safer technology. The fast charging is very attractive. And they have a partnership with VW.
VW. Yeah, that's big. I mean,
And
VW's aiming to do a lot seemingly with EVs.
Yeah, if they can hold on to their CEO, VW will do well. If they don't manage to hold on to their CEO, I think they could be in deep doo-doo. But we will see. Big company.
Well, I'd like to ask you, what do you see was their timetable for delivery? Like, what do they? Is it like 5 years? Is it 10 years? I mean, it's got to be like 5 years, right? 3 years, 5 years?
Yeah, it's 5 years, I think, at the earliest.
Oh, that's a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
yep.
It's like, so this is, I don't want to call it vaporware because that's really mean, but it's not real yet. This is like, you know what this is? This is that my solar cell, that 28% solar cell in the prior story. We should categorize both of these items in that window. The next, we should have an article, Tim, about things business owners can do today. We should have an article about cars that people can drive today, and then a little bit of future research, because both of these are future research if we're talking 5-year windows. At least the perovskite silicon, we're going to have some next year. But I bet somebody's going to put out a solid state battery before 5 years. So I don't know
Well,
if it's going to be fun.
I saw a story that Toyota is launching an EV based on solid state technology. I didn't drill down on that. So we will see.
Yep.
It's so interesting that a company like Toyota still does not have a pure EV on the market. Nissan does, but Japan has been somewhat sitting on the sidelines. They released their hydrogen fuel cell vehicle several years ago, which, it's a thing in California for a very small niche, but we just don't have the infrastructure for hydrogen yet. I do think hydrogen will be big, and we will be reporting more on hydrogen in the coming years. You know what I heard, John? This is a great parting shot, that 50% of the stimulus funding in Europe that's going, this is Corona stimulus funding, is going to be used for hydrogen. And so Europe is now planning to convert their natural gas grid to a hydrogen grid using existing infrastructure, which makes sense. Hydrogen is a gas, you can liquefy it also. But so we've got these massive natural gas pipelines. Same thing in the US. We're just not talking about doing this. And so it's coming. Well, John,
It's interesting to watch. It's interesting to watch. No questions asked.
how can our viewers find you, the commercial solar guy in Massachusetts?
Well, they could come to South Dartmouth and they can knock on my front door in my apartment, or they could visit my office in New Bedford if they wanted to. It's a very comfortable place. But online, just type into Google "commercial solar guy." I'm on Twitter regularly, talking via LinkedIn also, and our website commercialsolarguy.com. Just type that into the Goog, you will find me. There it is. That's it. That's my website.
And I don't see a link to your residential company there. Is that purposeful?
We need to do, first off, the website could use a lot of love. But Whaling City Solar, up at the top, it does say residential. I guess I should make that just go straight to the residential company now. So that's what's going to happen. Thank you, Tim. That's what we're going to do. The residential link is going to go straight to whalingcitysolar.com. So if you need residential, specifically in the south coast of Massachusetts area, we got a new technique called see-through solar, where we'll literally tell you the cost of every component so that you can really learn how to buy your residential project. Whaling City Solar. That is us. There it is. We're about the fourth one down. Got to move up that list. Whaling City Solar Home. There we go. So we're doing it. That's a project, one of our first projects. That see-through pricing tab right there. You can see it near the top. That's where we break down the individual components for a residential project, help people understand the real cost. That's our pitch. That's our big pitch. What's it really cost? Here's the math.
Excellent. And you can find me at Continental Energy Solutions website, cesnrg.com/videos. You find all of our content here, including the solar podcast interviews and the Clean Power Hour, which is right here. So check us out. If you like our content, please give us a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel and give us your comments. Share it with your friends. We would love to hear from you and get your ideas. So thank you for listening. And I want to thank you, John, for being my co-host for 24 episodes. We're approaching the half year mark at the end of the year, but it's been a great year. I think we'll do one more if we can next week, and then we'll be into 2021. So looking forward to that.
Awesome. Nice working with you, Tim.
All right. Well, let's grow solar and storage. Have a great day.